In the quaint and sleepy town where I lived, life had always been uneventful, almost to the point of monotony. I'm a single man in my mid 30s that had settled into a comfortable routine in my modest two-story house nestled at the end of Oak Drive. However, about a month ago, that calm and predictable existence began to unravel in the most unsettling way. It started with the small things: a missing sock, a book I couldn't find, a cup I was sure I had left on the kitchen counter. Initially, I dismissed these occurrences as simple forgetfulness, a natural consequence of my hectic work schedule and my tendency to be a bit scatterbrained. But as the days wore on, the disappearances became more frequent and more bizarre. One evening, after a long day at work, I came home to find my favorite coffee mug gone. I had bought it during a trip to New Orleans, a memento of a rare and enjoyable vacation. Its disappearance was the first real jolt, a signal that something was amiss. The following day, a pair of shoes vanished from my closet, and then a few days later, half a loaf of bread I had just bought was nowhere to be found. The air in the house began to feel different, heavier, charged with an almost palpable sense of unease. At night, the creaks and groans of the old structure seemed more pronounced, and I occasionally thought I heard the faint sound of movement, a soft shuffle, a muted footstep. But whenever I went to investigate, I found nothing amiss. My mind, seeking a rational explanation, turned to the only irregularity in my otherwise mundane life: a homeless man I'd seen several times wandering down my street. He was a disheveled figure, his eyes hollow and haunted, his clothes ragged and dirty. I had caught him once looking at my house with what I interpreted as envy. I had felt a twinge of guilt at the time, but now suspicion gnawed at my mind. Could he be sneaking into my house, taking things he needed? Determined to put an end to the mystery, I decided to confront the situation head on. I set up a plan to catch the intruder red-handed. One Friday night, I feigned leaving for work, driving off in my car, only to park it a few blocks away and sneak back on foot. The house was dark and silent as I slipped in through the back door. I moved quietly, settling into a hidden corner of the living room, shrouded in darkness. The clock on the wall ticked away the hours, and my eyes grew heavy with the effort of staying awake. It was well past midnight when I heard it, the faint creak of the front door. My heart leaped into my throat, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I steadied my breathing and waited. A figure materialized in the moonlit gloom of the living room. It was a man, but not the homeless person I had suspected. This man was taller, his frame gaunt to the point of emaciation. His movements were slow, deliberate, almost predatory. He began to rummage through my belongings with a bizarre sense of purpose. I flicked on the light switch, and the room was suddenly awash with light. The man turned to face me, and my blood ran cold. His eyes were wild, feverish, and his mouth twisted into a grotesque smile, revealing a set of teeth that had been filed to sharp points. Fear rooted me to the spot. This wasn't a desperate vagrant looking for scraps. This was something else, something far more sinister. Before I could react, he lunged at me with surprising speed. His fingers were like claws, grasping at me with a strength that seemed unnatural. I stumbled back, knocking over a lamp, the room plunging into semi-darkness. We grappled in the dark, his breath hot and rancid on my face. He was impossibly strong, his body wiry and tough like coiled steel. I managed to break free and scramble towards the kitchen. My mind was racing, terror mingled with disbelief at the surreal nightmare unfolding in my own home. In the kitchen, I grabbed the first thing that came to hand, a large butcher knife from the block on the counter. The intruder followed, his movements now a mix of animalistic snarls and human grunts. The fight was brutal and desperate. He seemed to feel no pain, his body moving with a relentless, unholy vigor. I swung the knife wildly, my actions fueled by primal survival instinct. The blade found its mark, slicing into his side. He let out a guttural howl, a sound that was both human and something else. Blood, dark and vicious, stained my hands and the kitchen floor. He stumbled back, his movements now erratic, his eyes filled with a mixture of fury and shock. Seizing the moment, I bolted past him, out of the kitchen, through the living room, and flung open the front door. The cool night air hit me like a wave as I ran out into the street, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't stop, didn't look back, fear propelling me forward as I ran for my life. The aftermath was a blur of police sirens, flashing lights, and a barrage of questions. The man was dead, the police later told me. He had bled out in the kitchen. The knife wound fatal. The investigation that followed unearthed a chilling backstory. The man was a drifter, a shadow in society with no name, no past to speak of. But the rumors that circulated were the stuff of nightmares, whispers of cannibalism, of a man who had descended into the darkest depths of human depravity. The realization that this monster had been living in my house, watching me, taking things as part of some twisted ritual, was too much to bear. I couldn't stay in that house, couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of being hunted. I left Oak Drive, left the town, seeking to put as much distance as possible between myself and those horrific events.